Hey, what's up you guys? It's Ruthie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to go into part 2 of chapter 8 of The Women of the Bible Speak by Shannon Bream of the Story of Mary. So let's get right into this video. This video is going to contain me speaking about topics of the Bible and anything to do with the Bible. If you do not wish to continue, you have the right to click off the video now. You have been warned. Her focus wasn't on the baby yet to come, but on the assurances she already had about the God who sent her the heavenly assignment. We would all understand if she felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of her task, but here she speaks with confidence in His mercy, remembering both the actions she has been seen and promises yet to be fulfilled. Mary was an evangelist with a very personal mission. She knew great truths about God, a God who chose a humble girl from a backwater Roman province to bring His Son to redeem humanity. This was God stepping inside the course of human history, joining the story of humanity in order to save it. Jesus' arrival would be revolutionary. Knowing what she did, Mary would never see the world the same way again, and she didn't keep this knowledge to herself. She proclaimed it. She had to know that the path God had charted for her would change the world, and yet her first testimony about Him and His plan started on the smallest of stages, her cousin Elizabeth's home. We sometimes think the size of our audience is a direct proportion to the impact we can have, but Mary didn't run to the town square. She started within her own family circle, and that's often our most important congregation, the people we love, those closest to us, because they get an up-close look at our faith and how we choose to live in the most practical ways. This includes laundry and grocery runs and paying bills and cleaning up after the dog, the real nitty-gritty that tests our patience. The two women shared a most special bond. Elizabeth's pregnancy was also foretold by an angel. Barren and older in age, Elizabeth would give birth to a man who served as the forerunner to Jesus himself, John. The angel proclaimed that John would bring many people back to God, and that he would make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Luke 1:17. Watch the beautiful meeting between the two cousins when they share their divine destinies. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. In a loud voice she exclaimed, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you will bear. But why am I so favored that the mother of my Lord should come to me? As soon as the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill His promises to her." Luke 1:41-45. Not only had Mary herself been filled with the Holy Spirit, but her cousin Elizabeth had the same experience. Mary's declaration of God's goodness and power was in response to the things that Elizabeth said. Elizabeth had focused on Mary proclaiming her blessedness and asking, "Why am I so favored that the mother of my Lord should come to me?" Luke 1:43. Mary took that praise of her gently and redirected it to the very source of the miracles they were both experiencing. In between these two poles of Mary's life, Gabriel's visit and Jesus' ascension into heaven, we see that even she didn't know how her son's life would play out. She too was caught off guard at times, always confident in who he was, but not always in on the game plan. From the earliest days of his life, Mary and Joseph were often on the run, first from Herod, the king who was determined to snuff out Jesus' young life. This threat sent them to Egypt for escape and later led them to Nazareth. But along the way, Mary received holy confirmation of the greater plan. Luke 2 tells us the story of a righteous and devout man named Simon. Mary and Joseph met him in Jerusalem in the temple courts where they had taken Jesus to be consecrated according to custom. Simon had been promised he would not die before he saw the Messiah. Watch as he sees Jesus. Simon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, "Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you may now dismiss your servant in peace, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel." Luke 2:28-32. From before he was conceived, Joseph and Mary knew that their son was special, but look at what Luke tells us about their reaction to Simon's emotional statement. The child's father and mother marveled at what we said about him. Luke 2:33. Even they knew who about the divine conception seemed startled by the reminder of his true identity. Along with Simon's joyful outburst came a warning. "A sword will pierce your own soul too." Luke 2:35. Did Simon's words plant a seed in Mary's mind, a thought that she carried all the way to the cross? We know she was the kind of woman who treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. Luke 2:19. We're also told about an elderly widow who had fasted and prayed at the temple for decades. Anna, she too recognized Jesus that day and testified to his destiny. And yet Joseph and Mary were engaged in the day-to-day duties of raising their family and working. So while we have a clear hindsight about his work and ministry, it appears that they sometimes had to be reminded. When Jesus was just 12 years old, they all traveled to Jerusalem for the Passover, but when his parents began their journey home, Jesus stayed behind without mentioning it. They were a full day into their journey before Mary and Joseph realized Jesus was not with their crowd. How panicked they must have been. Luke tells us they returned to Jerusalem and didn't find him until 3 days later, sitting in the temple courts having weighty theological discussions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. Luke 2:47. They may have been, but Mary was clearly upset. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Luke 2:48-50. These two people, his earthly parents, had both been visited by an angel and told exactly who their son would grow up to be. Yet we see once again that they weren't able to grasp the full import of what the world that would mean. This moment for Mary may have been the first time she really grappled with the idea that her son was not simply hers alone. She knew this intellectually, of course. The message of the angel had made it very clear who her son would be. It's one thing to know something with your mind and another to know it with your heart. Maybe Mary thought that the day when Jesus would belong to the whole world was still decades away. To see it beginning when he was just 12 must have been a shock. Luke goes on to tell us that Jesus was obedient to his parents and that Mary treasured all these things in her heart as Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. Luke 2:51-52. All those years, Mary was his doting mother, balancing an internal dialogue about the day she enjoyed watching him grow and the years of uncertainty still to come. Years later, we see that she's instrumental in his first public display of his miraculous power. Mary and Jesus, along with his disciples, were at a wedding in Cana. When the wine ran dry, it was Mary who brought it to Jesus' attention. This suggests she knew what he was capable of, but he at first suggested it was not yet time for his public ministry to begin. Rather than pushing Jesus, Mary simply told the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." John 2:5. Whatever her hesitations had been up to this point, Mary was now willing to reveal her son's identity to the world. In his first recorded miracle, Jesus turned water into wine so good it baffled the man overseeing the wedding feast. "You have saved the best until now," he proclaimed. John 2:10. And I'm going to leave it off right there so I can feed my daughter, and then I will come back and read more.